All right, let's go to the alter limits, the bad side of fly tying, I guess. The attractor stuff, because fish don't always take our flies because they're hungry. They often take them because they're curiosity, territoriality, aggression. We're just happy they eat them. So I'll just debarred that, one of the benefits of a regal. Strong jaws just crush this down. I'm tying this a little bigger. Usually probably I tie this on a number 10. But I'm going to tie you, you've all heard of the booby. You've probably heard of the blob. But I'm going to tie you a FAB, okay? Which stands for fat arse blob, okay? Another English pattern. Now this pattern came into being because the booby is a controversial fly in England. And again, if you think back to how many of their still waters are stocked, they're stocked with, fish in that 1.5 to 2 pound range a lot of times. And they're nicknamed stockies. And the standard practice in recent years has become, particularly in competitions, is stocky bashing. Right? Find them and wail on them and win the competition. The controversy is a lot of those English fisheries, if you fish boobies, Don, if you're not careful, they can take them deep, right? So I fish them aggressively. I don't fish them slowly. This is a rip and strip fly. This is, when they're not eating the natural stuff, you want to catch a fish, you're pulling this thing through the water at a pretty good pace. The other thing too about these bright, gaudy flies, as you'll see, is they have that attractive element. If you're fishing a team of flies, fish can come in and perhaps not eat your gaudy attractor like the FAB I'm going to tie here, but they'll draw into the fly, and you may have a Dialbach or a cruncher upstream or downstream of that fly in your team of flies, and they'll come in and eat that. So they're drawn to your set of flies by this attractor, and then you give them a more natural offering further down in your leader system as well. So it has a number of benefits. The reason these flies are controversial in England is because of this stocky bashing mentality that seems to be taking over their tournaments and sort of new anglers coming in, is they're concerned about that they're losing their imitative skills. Right? They don't fish the buzzers or chironoments like they used to, the more imitative stuff. They just put on a DI5 and 3 blobs of varying colors and rip them around and catch fish. Because most of the English fisheries aren't catch and release. So the whole booby thing, hooks deep, they don't care. They pull it in, they whack it anyway, right? So it's not because they can take boobies deep if you fish them quite slowly. So the problem is that fisheries started to ban boobies. Right? One of the benefits of a booby, for those of you who don't know, a booby is basically what I'm going to show you with a set of foam eyeballs at the front. And this keeps the fly up, off the bottom, or up in the water. Right? There's a technique called the washing line where they actually put this booby, it's like a dry dropper in reverse, and they put this booby on the point and it holds the other flies up, so you want to target a particular zone, the surface to the bottom, whatever you want to do. And of course this booby shakes and bakes and all this stuff, but they started to ban them. So the way the Brits got around this, the sneaky ones, is to put the foam at the back for the foam arsed blob. So I'm just going to take some foam. You want to tie a little foam tail in the back, about half the shank length. So I'm going to come in and I take this booby cord that you can get. This is stuff you get over the internet, flybox. It's hard to get over here, and you'd think with parachute posts and things like this it would be very popular, but it's not, and it's fairly dense. You can shape it, and in England it comes in a myriad of colors, right? We tend to just use the white or the black over here. So all I'm going to do here is take my thread forward. I've trimmed it on an angle just so I have a point to tie to, and then I just secure this tighter, tightest, almost like working with deer hair, right? And just get that tied in. So sometimes when you're tying these, you may want to think about a flat thread or a 6/0 thread, because just like tying deer hair, the fine threads can actually cut through the material because they're so fine. But a lot of these, this is MFC thread or the UTCs, as long as you're not heavy-handed, the 70 denier or the 8/0s work, because you can spin the bobbin counterclockwise, which will take out the twist, and you get nice flat wide wraps that don't cut through materials. But if you're a bit of a Cro-Magnon tire, then you might want to think about a heavy thread. And for the body, you can use crystal chenille, but the big thing over in England is Fritz. And it comes in a few colors. And you can tie combos. For time purposes here, I'm just going to pick, let's go with melon. I have all these colors. And thankfully, again, working with Kent at Canadian Llama, he told me, I can get this stuff. And I said, well, you should. Because it's getting popular. It's hard to get. When you order it from England, you're paying in pounds versus Canadian dollars, which is worse than paying American dollars. So I always tease Ed and stuff like that. That we have Cuban cigars and polar bear hair, and you know, it's worth, our dollar may be worth less, but it's colorful. So this is the Fritz, and it is a more supple in the water when it gets wet. And one of the tricks is to take off a length that I'm going to do, right? This is a gel core. It's supposed to be quite strong. And I should have a cup of water, but I'm not, so here we go.
Oh, nice.
It gets better. The best way to work with this stuff is to get it wet. This is usually about the part of the demonstration that my drinking water has Fritz rolling around the bottom for the rest of the day. So I'll try not to lose it. Stroke it out, but this makes it work better. And any sort of these twisted products like polar chenilles or whatever, it's always good to give them a little pull. Okay, take some of the twist out of them that's been there from the packaging process. And just like any chenille, you're just going to strip away a little bit to expose the core. We're going to tie this in. Take the thread forward. Stop up where the head is. And now all we're going to do is wind this around. So I like, before I really start to pull, is get one full wrap around the shank just about any time I'm tying materials in, because Murphy's Law says if I start pulling hard right away, I'm going to rip it right out. Right? So I've got the tie-in point plus an initial wrap. It kind of makes things work better. And I'm pulling on this now pretty hard. And because the material is wet, you can really pack it in. And with each wrap, I'm trying to pack as much of this material in as I can. And you can tie lots of different color combos. One of my favorites is tequila, which is not drinking it while you're tying it, but, well, that's not bad, but is to have a hot yellow butt, a couple of 3 turns of hot yellow, and then a sunburst orange, it's called. It's like Tillamook cheese color. If you get down in the States, that's good cheese. And that combination. But if you go onto some of the English sites like Craig Barr's Flash Attack Flies, there's 3 pages of different colored blobs and boobies, so you can see the color combinations at work. This actually color worked pretty good in the parklands in the fall. Brown trout like this one, which is usually, I look at these flies as more of a rainbow fly. So one of the problems whenever you're tying this stuff off, if I was to tie this off right now, I run the risk of getting a lot of fibers trapped in and tough to make a nice, neat head. So what I've done is I've taken the fly up to where the tie-in point is, and I'm sort of eyeballing that point, and I'll actually grip it, and I'll undo a couple of wraps, and right where that is, I'm going to take my fingernail in and kind of just rake it back and forth and pluck out, if I can, and I have, the fibers, so when I wind back up, if I've done this reasonably properly, I actually have an exposed thread cord just to tie on. I have no fibers. Okay? And having the material wet helps with that. So again, I just wound it up, got to where I was, unwrapped it a couple of wraps, got my fingernail into where that tie-off point is, kind of went back and forth and plucked out. And I might have only plucked out an 1/8 of an inch of material, if that, or a 1/16, just enough that I can tie it off. And then when I come in, I just have to, in theory, nip away, and I don't have near the fibers sticking out all over the place as if I tried just to tie it off in a regular way. Because we all know fish can tell your flies have neat heads, right?
Yes.
I think most of us just want this stuff because we're deathly afraid our buddies will look in our fly box and go, "You fish with that?" And all I'm going to do now is build up a oversized head. You can tie it with red heads, chartreuse heads. This is a fluorescent fire orange. And you build it up a little oversized. And again, it's just another point of attraction. And then you just whip finish, and your fab is done. So again, it's called a fat arse blob because it's the way these guys got around on a booby ban. They'd let them fish blobs, but they couldn't fish boobies because of the foam. So they said, well, why don't we stick the foam at the back end like a tail? And we have found our way around it. And what it does, over here in North America, it doesn't really matter because we don't have those rules. But it just gives the fly, with the buoyancy at the back end, it's just going to give the fly a little different action on the retrieve than a booby at the front end, where those eyes at the front are going to pull it up on the strip. When you let go, it's going to rise up, and when you strip it, the foam eyes cause the flies to wobble a bit. So this puts a little different action on the paws. The fly's going to rear up from the back end a little bit and maybe not wobble as much. So that's the FAB. So there's some English flies to keep you going. I thought I'd get 4 in, but I only get 3. Right, because we go to 11, right, boss? Right. Yeah, because I don't want to get on the dark side of the time master. So there's the cruncher, tied that one. Just a good impressionistic pattern. Good when fish are in the surface film. You want just something buggy to use. 12s and 14s is a good size. Tie in a lot of different colors. And then there's the Bach, which is just an impressionistic, skinny-looking nymph. It works well when they're on scuds. When they're on chironomids too. I find when you fish chironomids into deeper water, you can get away with a little larger flies, a little more flash to them. When this fly gets wet, it has that chironomid pupa appearance, so it's suggestive. So it covers a lot of bases for you, right? Until you hopefully hook a fish, and then you might choose, if you're comfortable doing it, is do a throw sample, see what they're on, and get a little more finite with your presentation. And then if sort of those realistic things don't work, then you can go over to the dark side like this and throw flashlights and street signs at them, such as this FAB or a booby. Or if this was a blob, it would have the same body, no buoyant tail, and a lot of times I just put in some of this crystal mirror flash in as a tail. If it was a booby, it might have marabou at the back end, and then we'd make a set of foam eyeballs at the front and figure 8 them in the front. So they're all kind of variations of the theme. A lot of these flies, if you go to my YouTube channel, I've got 50 tying videos or something up. I just uploaded one yesterday, the CDC red tag, which is a Euro nymph pattern, but the blob is up on there. The Bach and the cruncher will be up shortly because I filmed a bunch over the Christmas break. So there you go, 3 flies you may not have seen in the past, and just some different techniques for tying them, and you can drink. Something's going to kill me anyway.